Hello and good afternoon, folks, and welcome to another Flycast Partners presentation. My name is Rich Longo, and I'll be your host for today's webinar entitled Discovering Dependency Mapping for Government Agencies, presented by Flycast Partners' very own Kyle Hamilton. Now, for those of you that don't know Kyle has been in the IT industry almost 30 years. I know time is creeping up on him there, and I'm sure he appreciates me sharing that. But he's been in almost 30 years now and been involved with a great number of different solutions and different processes and dealt with different industries and has a wide variety of knowledge on everything from anything asset management, service management, and some operations management, and everything in between. But before we get started, Kyle, let me introduce Flycast Partners. Flycast Partners offers best-in-class implementation services and training in IT service management, IT asset management, IT operations management, enterprise service management, and workload automation spaces using ITIL best practices. Our professional services team has well over 5,500 service engagements on site and remote. As an organization, we have well over 1,100 regular customers throughout Canada and the United States. We encourage you to reach out to us at 844-FLYCAST, that's 844-359-2278, or go to our website. Check us out. Look around at webinars, events, training. Chat with us. That's what that little green box to the right is on our main page. Yeah, that's a chat box. Those guys are standing by for you Monday through Friday during normal Eastern Time business hours. And if that doesn't work for you, we encourage you to go ahead and email us at info@flycastpartners.com. Throughout today's presentation, I encourage you to send us your questions. Kyle is happy to answer any of the questions that you send to us today, as long as time permits. So send those questions, folks, in the question section of this GoToWebinar. Without further delay, I'm actually going to go ahead and turn this presentation over to the star of the day, Mr. Kyle Hamilton. Kyle, give me 1 second here. We're going to go ahead and give you control. There you go, sir. You've got it.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Rich.
You're welcome.
And good afternoon to everybody. Appreciate you taking lunchtime out of your day to participate in today's webinar. As Rich mentioned, we're going to be covering, I know the title was Application Discovery Dependency Mapping for Government. You'll probably hear that term or that title used within BMC and wider circles as well. However, that same product has also been renamed into just simply BMC Discovery. So if you hear BMC Application Discovery Dependency Mapping or ADDM, or you hear BMC Discovery, just know that those two are one and the same, just a simple rebranding. The reason we're talking, really focusing today's webinar on government is primarily, well, for two main reasons. Number one, obviously, when talking about government agencies, you're dealing with a large number of assets. So asset tracking becomes critical, more and more critical the larger you become. You know, that problem just gets exacerbated the more geographically distributed you are, which of course government is, as well as just the sheer number of assets. Now, when you get into then talking about looking at the dependencies and the relationships between assets, then that amount of information that we're talking about becomes enormous. And so being able to manage it with manual means is typically simply not an option. The volume of data and the rate of change in most environments is too great to be able to keep up with, even if you were to devote, an entire team, entire staff just to keeping up with all the updates. So that's, its primary goal is to provide a way for organizations like federal, state, local governments to be able to easily deploy a tool that can help you understand exactly what you have and fill in what's typically a large dark spot or gap, if you will, in terms of understanding your network. What you typically find is that your desktop and laptop environments, those get covered first, because those are the customer, those are the end users. So you have to keep them, put the fires out, keep everybody up and running and operational. So that side of the house, we call the front, or I'll call the front side of the house, typically is addressed. It may be using multiple tools. It may be a scattering of different departments and different methods and ways, but they tend to, track and manage that environment to some degree. BMC Discovery is not focused on the front of house. It is purely focused on the back of house. So non-client environment. I'm talking servers specifically, of course, but your switches, your routers, firewall devices, multiplexing devices, mid-range computers, mainframes, all those things that are non-client devices, but in many cases, especially talk about mainframe devices, very large assets, and typically those assets are entrusted with the crown jewels in terms of data. And so it's important to be able to have a good understanding of not just the front of house, but also to have a good understanding of the back of house and what you have, where is it located, how is it connected, and how is it communicating, and is it functioning? Now, when we talk about BMC Discovery, the first real benefit of using this tool in any environment is ease of deployment. This is delivered as a virtual appliance, so it's a simple download for customers. It runs a hardened version of CentOS that requires no configuration. So you literally just download the file from BMC, install it on your physical host or your hypervisor of your choosing, whether it be VMware, Microsoft, etc., and boot it up. Now, in my case, you'll notice here on the console is exactly what I've done here. I get a DHCP address assigned to me when I boot this machine up. The only difference in a customer environment or production environment would be that IP address would typically be static. Other than that, that's it. You boot up the machine, and of course, if you're assigning a static address or if you're using a DHCP address, you simply open up a browser, type in that address, and you're going to be presented with the login for the Discovery console. So this is where the administrator can go in and set up. Number one, what do you want to look at? What are we looking for? What parts of the network? What are those IP address ranges or host names that you want to go looking at, so that we can start focusing this on those critical devices and start being able to collect and gather some information. So you can stand this up typically within about an hour or less, and you're ready to start hitting the button and start running Discovery in your environment. And it's not unheard of for customers to have results, and in some cases even have entire data centers mapped within a single day once it's configured. Majority of the time that's typically spent on customer sites getting things set up, in many cases, is running around the environment and getting the login IDs and passwords and credentials that are needed for all of these systems, all these servers, database, SQL databases, Oracle databases, WebSphere applications, getting all those credentials so that when you run these scans, then you have the authority to be able to issue the queries and issue the commands needed to pull back all that critical information that you're going to want, so that you can set up multiple scans of not only the local environment, but it also handles cloud environments as well. So if you're leveraging Azure, if you're leveraging AWS or OpenStack, being able to actively discover that environment as well as your local environment so that you can have those things set up on a recurrent schedule so that you're constantly, rescanning those different subnets or those different address ranges at different times. And of course, the ability to rescan or, do a scan on demand if necessary, if you want to immediately update information. So that this can go out and sweep the network and update that information so that we can pull that up in some of the dashboards we'll take a look at in just a minute when we talk about the actual results of all of this discovery. Now, it's very easy to set up, but it's also very easy to administer and manage. Number one, it provides a wide range of support. I already talked about the ability to go all the way up to mainframe discovery, being able to, communicate directly to vCenter, and capture VMware updates and vMotion events. All of the different OSs and flavors that you see here, and of course, all the Windows world as well. But beyond the platforms, of course, a broad range of devices. So being able to actively discover everything from your Bay networks, switches, all the way to, of course, your bigger vendors like Cisco and Check Systems and the HP and the like, so that they provide all the updates for all the new equipment. So that as you're going out and scanning your environment, it's actively able to and accurately able to identify exactly what device it is, version, vendor, and of course, give you the ability to capture events and understand, be able to communicate with that device, whether those devices are already in this list. And you'll see, when I scroll down here, a long list of the device vendors, right, that are supported out of the box. However, BMC also provides a model and a method for customers. If you've got a new device, be able to submit that directly into support, and they've got a 30-day turnaround where they can incorporate your device into the next update, so that on a scheduled basis, you can go to BMC and download what they call as TKU or technology update. And this is going to provide you with all of those. You can call them fingerprints. They call them blueprints in here. It's really how do we identify a specific version of an Oracle database, or how do we identify a particular application. So all of these blueprints BMC provides, but you can also go in and create your own. And let's take example something common like, say, Microsoft SQL. Let me pull up a specific instance of SQL here. And let's say I'm going to look at this SQL database, and you'll notice right here, let's see, it's pulled right. Let's click this guy. There we go. So what we're looking at here is a specific, now we'll get back to the map in just a moment, but we're looking at a specific instance of Microsoft SQL, and you'll see it shows me just above where this instance, what version the instance is and where it's running. Now what I've done is I've opened up a little window on the side that shows me the provenance. It essentially shows me, how do I know that the information on the left is accurate? How did we acquire it? Where did it come from? And you'll see that some of these are from, in the Windows world, just WMI query, right? Simple WMI query to the device. Some of them may be looking at processes, or it's just looking for a process on the box. Now, in this case of Microsoft SQL, you'll notice that it's used what's called a pattern. And this is that fingerprint that I mentioned. You'll see all the updates and changes that have been made to it over time. But essentially this pattern, you'll see it just down below here. This is what allows me to go out and interrogate the device to find out, number one, is it running SQL? If it is, what databases are on there? What drives are they on? How much space are they, taking up? Where are the transaction log files stored, etc. These patterns can be updated just as easily as BMC does. So then if you want to update the information you need to collect about SQL Server, or you want to store some additional information that BMC doesn't collect out of the box, it makes it easy for you to go in and update those patterns and give you a level of detail that you're not going to get by simply doing an SNMP scan or some type of an Nmap scan on the network, which is just going to give you some real high level information, but it's not going to give you the level of detail that you'll get by being able to actually log in through these patterns and be able to execute commands against that Cisco switch or against that Bay network router, just as if you were sitting at the console for that switch or that router. So being able to show the interfaces, being able to look at traffic, anything that you can do while logged in to an administrative console, you can build through those patterns and through those scripts. So it allows you the flexibility to be able to get the information you want, but to be able to do so without having to deploy any agents. That's the next piece that makes this a very easy tool to deploy. Is not only is the server easy to deal with because there's zero configuration outside of the IP address, but when it comes time to actively using this in the environment, you have nothing to install on your servers. There's nothing to install on your switches. There's nothing else other than this virtual appliance that needs to run. Now, of course, you'll have to provide credentials for those discovery scans that we talked about, so that when it goes out and it looks at that IP address and it finds SQL Server running and it needs to ask SQL about those databases and where those files are stored, it's going to have to log into that SQL Server with SQL an ID or password to be able to look more in depth into SQL. And so what they do is they provide for the capability for what they call a credential vault, meaning that you're going to have to go around and you're going to have to get application owners, device owners, service owners to come and provide you with the ID and password, the credentials needed to be able to scan those databases and the servers and the switches. We need to authenticate, but you don't want to just simply hand those over to anybody and everybody. So what the vault does is it gives you a method or gives customers a method to have those business owners and app owners put their credentials into the vault so that they're stored and available and for use in those discovery processes, but they are not available to anybody else. They're not available to, matter of fact, they're not even available to the person that puts them in. Once they're entered, they are encrypted and put into the vault, and they can never be viewed or looked at again. So the vault provides a secure way for you to get all the keys to the castle in one place, but without providing the keys to the castle to everybody that has access to the console or all the administrators, so that you can safely store the credentials that are going to be needed to do the discoveries without having to make that information widely available. Both credential vault, they can be used inside of BMC Discovery, or if you're already using something along those lines like CyberArk, being able to integrate and use a current credential vault, providing similar functionality. So again, this is what gives you the ability then to be able to run those patterns against those devices and being able to pull back the database details and all the information that you want. So when we talk about all the information, all the detail that's returned is available through dashboards and reports, many of which are provided out of the box. We'll look at some of those here. But you also have the ability to create your own custom dashboards, custom reports. Now, you'll notice right up here in the top, these are some of the scattering of the out-of-the-box dashboards. Getting down the bottom, you'll see an option for copying those, so you can take one and start making changes to it, updates to personalize it. What we're looking at now, this baseline dashboard, essentially just takes the discovered data and it breaks it down into asset classes, asset categories. You'll see over on the left-hand side. So being able to look at all my host devices, my host machines, whether they be Windows, virtual, physical, Dell, HP, doesn't matter. So this just allows me a quick way from the dashboard to quickly see, if I'm interested in just looking at databases, Oracle, SQL, what have you, being able to quickly drill into just the database software if needed. You noticed before that I can also use the search box that's up here, which is a very powerful global search, so that if I'm looking for Oracle or if I'm looking for SQL or anything along those lines, it'll allow me to quickly identify, how many instances of Oracle do I have running within the environment? What are those 127 instances, and what are they running on? And then in the case where maybe I want to understand a little bit more about maybe what that Oracle server is doing, being able to simply select it from that list and have it model or break that out into a visualization for me. So I can see not only the Oracle Cloud file server in this case, but be able to see, okay, it's talking to a particular disk out here. You'll notice the little blue arrows that pop up here, which will allow me to basically open up and expand it to show me additional connections. So you can kind of define how many levels you want to start your map out at, how much detail you want to start, and then give yourself the ability to open that up or expand that view so that if there are additional connections out there on any of these leaf nodes, then you can easily expand those out. Now, in addition to all of the discovered data that you may go and collect, right? And that could be about this Oracle server instance, or maybe I want to take a look at this Oracle database, in which case you see as I drill down, again, now it's going to give me some details about this specific Oracle database instance. Where is it located, right? Which processes are running that drive it, file storage, home storage, etc. You'll also notice right here in the middle, we also have the ability to pull what's called extended data. Extended data could pertain to things like end of support, end of life for a device or for an application, as well as things like power consumption and heat output for devices. So that extended data can be used not only when I'm looking at a specific instance, being able to understand how much longer it has to go until it reaches end of support, but to be able to have active dashboards so that I can maybe pull that up either on an operating system level. So if I want to break down, take a look at, for example, all of my operating systems that I have right now where end of support is already exceeded. You'll notice I can go in and drill into that particular section, and now I'm looking at those devices that all exceeded end of support. And if I need to understand more about what that particular application or device is doing within the environment, then again, I can drill right back to that discovered data to see, okay, it's tied into my antivirus software, and it looks like it's running a database for this web server. So again, you can use that information to make decisions when it comes time to, especially at end of support. Do we need to update the software? Do we need to get rid of this box and replace it with something else? Or have we already moved on to something else? We just need to retire it. It'll give you the ability to get some business context from which you can make those decisions beyond just, the fact that it's out of support or end of life. Rich, I noticed that I see the chat kind of flashing with questions. So I'm going to stop and see if we had any questions at this point.
I have been soliciting them the entire time, but it doesn't look like anybody has them. Folks, once again, as I've told you in chat, if you have a question, put it in there. Kyle's here today to answer those questions for you.
All right. So this will easily allow you to get a model of, again, not only your local environment, but if I go back to my baseline dashboard here, and I look at those cloud service providers. So if you are leveraging, you have resources in AWS or Azure, being able to do the same type of discovery, being able to model that AWS or Azure environment in the exact same way that we do with your local environment, right? We don't treat it any differently. We give you the ability to be able to set up those scans to be able to do the same type of scan on your Azure resources that you can on a local resource. The same kind of capability to drill in and pull out details for those Azure resources or AWS resources. But in addition to that, a lot of times what you're doing with BMC Discovery is you're going to go out, you're going to discover all of this information, connected hosts and services, applications that are, running on a particular server that are, hosted on a box or hosting a virtual machine. But you also want to be able to put some business context to this data. And that's where it gives you the ability to model or create what's called an application model or business model on top of what's discovered. So this is where you can start it from your database or start from your web server, wherever it makes logical sense, and to start creating a model of an entire application. Whatever you'd see some of those, it could be a payroll application or budgeting or project management, right? So we'll say, well, it's project management, for example. So I can go in, and on top of what's discovered, I can go in and I can put in some additional business context. So I can throw a name on to this group of devices, right? So it may include everything from servers to virtual IP address pools to applications to switches and routers, where I can take those and wrap those up into a model that I'm going to call and say, all of these devices support my project management service or my, HR service. And that will then allow me to go in and add other attributes onto that model. So if I want to go in and, put the business owner or, business priority level, and sort of, emergency phone numbers, whatever the case may be, I can go in and I can now start adding some data, putting some metadata on top of this so that I not only have that discovered detail, but I have the ability to then start putting some business naming, some context to it, some ownership and some key information to it. So if something, were to go wrong, number one, immediately if I get a notification that, let's say, for example, this particular 2008 server goes down, right? If this server goes down, I now know that it's going to affect my payroll service, and I know who to contact in the case of an outage, or what that emergency contact, process is. So it gives you the ability to go in and start putting some business context on all of that discovered data, so that you can go in, move this around here, so that you can go in and, like I said, and this is typically an iterative process, right? It's not any one person, in most cases, is going to know all the details about everything about this service or app. You're going to have your database administrators, and they're going to know about the database side, but they don't know anything about the application. And then you're going to have your sysadmins that understand the hardware and the networking and the switching side, but have no clue for the applications or the databases that run across it. And so typically this is something where you're going to have multiple subject matter experts, right, that are all going to be coming in to BMC Discovery, to the console, and providing some of that detail and business context so that ultimately you're able to collect that expertise from, all the different, resources, so that it, always have to, convene in a conference room to be able to understand what's going on or how to fix it, or how it happened. I get everybody to input all the detail, and then when I publish that model or that application map out, then you'll see that it kind of wraps everything up for me now under this service name of project management, right? So now I can start tracking this as a service and actually be able to see all the included devices, all the switches, all the applications that support this app that are up, that are actually in that visualization that you see up top. But now when I come into BMC Discovery, fresh after login, if I want to go in and I want to take a look at, the project management environment, you'll notice here that I've got, application instance of project management, and I can now immediately recall all of those same devices, all those same applications, because they're now all consolidated under that application name, that service name. So it's powerful enough to be able to go out and collect all the details on the devices and the applications and be able to create this map for you to let you know where things are being hosted and where communication's taking place, but then allow you to go in and provide some of that, again, subject matter expertise to be able to put some business context to it. So now when I get this, an event in the service desk, for example, that says the server goes down, and it doesn't simply tell me the server goes down, but it lets me know that project management, service is degraded or is going to be impacted due to this outage, because we understand that connection and we understand that impact. So this type of information can be used and is really used to support all of your service management processes. Ultimately, this discovered data would be fed as maybe one of several sources into a CMDB, so that when you're working with customers on the phone and they're troubleshooting an issue, they can pull up, this type of graphic out of the CMDB so they can see where that user's sitting, which printer are they trying to connect to. They've got all the details available to them. If they're working in problem management and they're doing root cause analysis and trying to eliminate, errors from the environment, again, they've got detailed expertise available to pull out of these diagrams and these dependency maps to be able to allow them to do problem management. And then, of course, even more critical is when you get into change management and you start talking about being able to perform an impact analysis. What happens if I go in and I change something, on this IP address configuration on the subnet? What if I go on and play around with the IP address pools? Well, now I know that the potential downside is we may have a problem with our project management team because they may be experiencing issues, or it could be payroll, or whatever that service is, so that you can use this kind of information to brace or support up all of those ITSM processes you may be utilizing today, so that each one of them gets better by having access to subject matter and some expertise that, as I mentioned before, otherwise takes a convening of multiple individuals from across different geographies, in some cases virtually. So this is an easy way to be able to coalesce everything into one place. And of course, this can feed into everything from It doesn't matter. It's agnostic whether you're using ServiceNow, whether you're running BMC footprints, or you're using Remedy, which is another big reason. There's a big focus on discovery in the government. Of course, there's a lot of government agencies from the Department of Defense and on utilize Remedy as their service and support management tool. And BMC Discovery was purpose-built and continues to be purpose-driven around populating that Remedy CMDB or Remedy Force for those SaaS customers or those that are in the cloud. So it provides easy methods or easy ways to take this data, collect it, enhance it, and then feed it into the CMDB or asset management tool of your choice so that you can use that in all of those service and support processes. So very easy tool to deploy. Very, again, they say results in minutes and hours, not days and weeks. Again, I would say not a long implementation, but from the time it's implemented to the time you should have your data center mapped is typically less than 24 hours. We're talking about devices again here that no laptops and things that are going to be on and off network or popping off, people go home. Because this is focused on the infrastructure, we're pretty sure that no matter what time of day or what day of week you run that discovery, it should typically find the exact same devices out there, the exact same applications running. So this is something that you get quick results, quick time to value, and it provides some details that, again, otherwise would take a tremendous amount of time and effort to be able to collect, as well as to be able to maintain it with any degree of accuracy that you would want. I know we've got about 5 odd minutes left. Rich, throw it back. We've got any questions from anybody? Or
no, folks, go ahead and type those questions in there. Don't be afraid. Kyle is here to answer those questions for you. If you're a little on the bashful side and don't want to do that way, that's fine too. You can also email them to us at info@flycastpartners.com, or you can chat with us live on our website. And that bottom right-hand corner is our green chat box. Those guys are monitoring that during normal business hours, Monday through Friday. As of yet, Kyle, I don't have any takers on questions.
No problem. I'm just going to give, for the last minute or so, I'm just going to give a brief overview of some of the other information that's available through the out-of-the-box dashboards and reports. Okay. Of course, there's not just the hardware breakdown by hardware type, but then you've got, of course, all your software discovery information. What kind of operating systems, what kind of applications am I running? And you have the same kind of extended data on all of these like we saw before. So I'll be able to look and see if, I'm out of support with this instance of Windows Server 2012 by just, scrolling down in the details, and I'll be able to see, that extended data for that version. So I'll know whether we're okay or not. And of course, I can easily drill, up and down through these dashboards as needed. So you've got great out-of-the-box dashboards around applications. This server consolidation dashboard highlights the other part of the extended data that I mentioned, like power consumption, heat output. And so if you're trying to consolidate your data center, you're trying to shrink things down, or maybe you're trying to virtualize and trying to figure out which devices do we get rid of first, what do we want to tackle first. A lot of times you go after, the ones that eat up the most power and put out the most heat, which has to be countered with AC. And so by using that extended data, again, I can quickly go in here and highlight all of my big offenders, right? Who are the ones that are using the most power, and then be able to go in and take a look at, quickly and see, are they a part of payroll? Or, oh gosh, that's for HR app. I better not touch that one and move on to the next. But again, that's going to give you the ability to use that extended data along with your application models to be able to make some intelligent, good decisions about how you collapse the network down, or how you shrink the data center in the most efficient manner, tackling the ones that are consuming the most power, putting out the most heat, get rid of those first, or, in some cases, being able to look at capacity. So it may not be based on energy or power output or heat output. It may just be based on, well, which devices do we have that have some spare memory, or they have some excess process capability or compute power. So a lot of great dashboards out of the box that allow you not only to break down your environment, understand what devices you have and how they're connected, but also provide some information to help make decisions as to how you manage that environment going forward and what kind of changes need to be made and in what order you want to tackle them. So with that, Rich, unless we have any questions, I'll throw it back to you.
Nope, there's no questions. And folks, I want to thank you. Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. We do have a question. Just came up. Let me see if I can't open that up here real quick. There we go. Bear with me there. Is there an interface into the CMDB on the remedy side to enable the asset records to be part of the golden reference data?
Absolutely. Yeah, there is within the admin features. One of those, of course, is your CMDB sync. And again, the CMDB API is what's used with Atrium, with Remedy. This one page is all that's required. So this is your entire integration into the Remedy CMDB is right here, and you'll see that it's built using the exact same data model that Remedy uses. So they're one-to-one relationship with the fields and the tables. There's no mapping, there's no translation. Everything it's gathering and collecting here in BMC Discovery is exactly what Remedy and Atrium CMDB are expecting and looking for. So it makes it very easy to, once you've collected and gathered this data, you fill out this one page and you hit save and say go, and you can have all of this information in Remedy, again, typically in an hour.
Great question, Robert. And any other last minute questions, go ahead and type them in there. If not, I want to thank everyone for taking time out of their busy schedule to join us today. I know how everyone's schedule is in IT. Kyle, definitely, I know how busy you are helping out our account manager. So thank you as well. Folks, if you have any questions and you're a little too shy to type them in here, by all means, give us a call at 844-FLYCAST. That's 844-359-2278. Or you can go ahead and chat with us live on our website. That bottom right-hand corner of our website there is a place for you to type in your questions. We'll be more than happy to go ahead and answer those questions for you. Definitely email us at info@flycastpartners.com. We'll get you answers that way as well. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and end this for today and wish everyone a great week, and stay safe out there, folks.